What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of 10X Recruiting, brought to you by MetaView. Sile, what's up, man? Where are you at in the world today?
In London again. How you doing?
I'm great. Are you alone in the office or something? Like, is there anyone else there?
Yeah, I'm alone in the office right now. Chicago last week for RecOps conference, which was really awesome, and a bit of time in SF, but back in London this week. And you're in Nashville, right?
Actually, I am indeed in Nashville. Today, we talked to Evan Connor, who's the VP of Talent at Ambience. What were your takeaways?
Biggest takeaway was, it's not a new one, but it's like always worth reinforcing, which is, hey, if you want to be a great recruiter, you need to be in the business. You need to observe the business, know what your team's working on. And he just does a great job articulating that. And one thing that it made me think, which I think hopefully will be helpful for folks to think about too, is I'm a big sports fan. And obviously scouting and recruiting is a massive part of sports. Can you imagine someone who recruits for a sports team not being intimately familiar with the current team and how it does its stuff? How well do you understand the teams you are trying to recruit into? And can you get yourself to a position where you actually know the team well enough that when you say to the hiring manager, I think we should look at someone who's more sort of this way because of this, and this with the team, you cannot do that unless you know the team. It just hit different for me, this one, with the way he spoke about it, like such a top priority for him.
I had two big takeaways. One is that the future recruiters must be grown. So this actually goes back to a conversation Evan and I had at a 10X dinner in San Diego over the summer. And kind of everybody at the table was complaining about like the lack of recruiting talent. And there's clearly right now like more companies that are hiring. And so they're looking for recruiters. You're a founder right now in the office at 10 p.m. You're okay with your team not being there. Most founders are not okay with that. And so like finding those like intense, like down to do it, down to grind, especially at the early stage recruiters, there just isn't enough of them. And there's many reasons why, but the reality now is like they must be grown. And I think there's significant alpha opportunities for companies to grow recruiters, especially if you're a little bit later stage, like doing a rotational program. I mean, I talked a little bit about this, but I've been thinking about it for a little while. And that was one huge takeaway for me. The other one is recruiting doesn't stop at offer accept. Evan owns the Ambience onboarding program, which he described, which is just an awesome, it's such a good listen for everybody out there. But basically, like they fly everybody in and then they have like all of the execs come in at different parts of the day to teach the business. My favorite part of the day is they actually like make you pitch the company. My feedback to Evan was like, I feel like actually you guys should like make them do it together and put them like on the spot a little bit. But like everybody should be able to pitch the company, whether it's to a colleague, whether it's to your parents, whether it's to like your sister, like it's an important thing to do. And I love how they do that contained version in the onboarding process, which is owned by their VP of Talent. Here is my conversation with Evan Connor. This is 10X Recruiting, a podcast from MetaView. Let's get after it. All right, Evan, you got to start by telling us, how did you meet your wife?
Oh man, this is a great story. I think it's safe for work. So when I graduated college, I moved to San Francisco. I worked in emergency medical services and was a paramedic for several years. And I think it was like 2 a.m. We were in San Francisco and we got a call for service and it was for a shooting. And we had to like stage around the corner for a couple minutes until police secured the scene. We got on scene. The call was like not going to go anywhere. Like situation was bleak. And the first officer on scene, we ended up like loading the victim into the back of the ambulance and took him to General Hospital. And the first officer on scene jumped in the back of the ambulance and I was like, oh, hey, how can I help you? And she's like, oh, can we get any information from him? And I was like, no, we're doing like chest compressions and it's code 3 to the hospital. And then I saw her outside of the hospital after the call and we were both doing paperwork and, we kind of just like said hello to each other. And then I kept seeing her on calls after that. And one day saw her off duty and just asked her for a number. And then 2 years later we were married and it was a pretty good story. So kind of a unique way to meet her.
How long have you guys been married now?
We've been married 13 years now.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I always tell people I think marriage is super underrated in today's world. My wife and I have been together for going on 17, married for more than 11. And dude, it's the best, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really good. It's life partnership and it's been a really good run for us. So
Yeah. And so meeting your wife and you being a former EMS person, and now you're working at Ambience, I'm assuming that those two worlds collide. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I think like I've always wanted to do mission driven things with my work and with my time. And after I transitioned out of EMS and got into recruiting, uh, just had a number of great opportunities unfold. And one of those was working at Ambience. And if you don't know, Ambience is building AI for clinicians to help just reduce administrative burden in their lives. And I think there's a huge amount of like feedback that we get from the clinicians of how grateful they are that we're bringing a solution into their lives that can allow them to like focus on patient care and not have to do all the administrative work. And so there's a real good like feel story, and that kind of ties back to just my interest in helping people and also just being on the front lines with healthcare. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of pull there.
And also just like interacting with people too, right? Like you and I were at this MetaView dinner a few weeks ago in San Diego, and you and I were both complaining about this last like vintage of recruiters. I think we probably share the same belief that like there's just a shortage. What do you think is going on there?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm hiring for someone on my team right now, and I've interviewed a lot of folks. And I think one of the things that I notice is that they're generally it's kind of the same playbook and the same script with everybody, and there isn't a lot of like differentiation. And I think for me, where I see this industry going, and really the role of the recruiter is being a true business partner that understands the business, the goals, the health of the business, the finances, the products, right? Because if you're going to bring somebody into the organization, you have to know all of those things and tie it all together. It's going to help you do your job much better. It's also going to make you much more credible. But most importantly, it's going to help you identify the right people for the organization that are going to fit the needs of the business, right? So I think it's just like that business context that's sometimes missing that leaves something to be desired.
Yeah, the business partner line kind of like sounds trite because I think like everybody says it. The other one that like makes me, want to jump off my balcony is when people are like, I want a seat at the table. And my experience with that was like, well, you have to earn it. And part of the way that you earn it is by earning trust. And the way you earn trust is you can speak the language of the business operators. And the way that you do that is you actually like get in there. Like I've told this story before, but at DoorDash, we had to do WeDash every month. So you either had to dash or you had to do customer support. And at the time, I thought this was super stupid because I was like super buried. Everybody is. But 3 months in, I was like, oh, like I deeply understand the challenges that our business operators are trying to solve.
That's right.
And then, and then the other thing we did was like we would actually send recruiters into these early markets to where like they would just like go sit with the business
Yeah,
and basically help them in any way, shape, or form for like 2 to 3 days as part of their onboarding.
that's right.
And when they got back, they had so much more context, which to your point enables them to understand like what are the challenges and more importantly, like who are the types of people that we should be looking at that can help solve these challenges. And I feel like that's essentially gone in today's recruiting market.
Yeah. And I don't know that it's an indictment on the recruiters themselves. I think, if anything, like that's on me as a leader to help build and grow and cultivate a team that A, has that seat at the table, but B, can also get in the trenches and broaden their scope to be thinking about things like what is the org design of this business? How does each role have the right scope and responsibility that actually ties back to the business objectives, right? Are my recruiters sitting in on the product meetings to understand where the roadmap is going and how that translates into more revenue for the business and more growth, right? So I think it's on us as leaders to really not only identify those people that are full stack operators and they're capable of like sweeping the floor, but also being like highly strategic, but also giving them the opportunity and holding them accountable to embedding themselves into the business. And I think that's probably the missing link.
Yeah, I don't think you have a choice today, but the problem is we still have a shortage. And every day I'm getting pinged, literally every day, from people who are like, hey, do you know anybody? I was just talking to a friend yesterday who was like, hey, I'm hiring for my team. What do you think? Like, do you know anyone looking? And so like, I actually do feel like there's a legitimate shortage of great recruiters. So where does the next great recruiter come from?
It's a good question. I don't know that I have the answer, but I have some theories. I think these folks need to be grown, right? I think you need to find really high slope folks that are really intelligent, really driven, and who can be generalists like athletes and flex across various aspects of the business. So one example is I hired somebody who spent some time at agency, went to a VC, and as we brought her in, she hadn't worked in-house before, but we knew she was super smart, really capable, had all the potential in the world. And so we brought her in. She's been ramping up as a recruiter, doing really well. But we also gave her onboarding and we said, we want you to help onboard everybody into the company. The way we've been doing it is, good. We want you to make it great. And just gave her that entire program. And we have this incredibly well-oiled machine now where after 8 months, we've run like 8 different cohorts once a month. And the feedback we've gotten is that it's just like the best onboarding that anybody's ever done. And so I think if you give people like smart folks really challenging and ambiguous problems and unleash them to be able to do that, but also like they need to be connected to an operator or somebody who can really help them and coach them throughout that process. I think these folks can be grown and I think they can turn into like really high impact assets for the business.
Yeah, my theory on this is like, especially in the era of AI, it seems that recruiting is actually for the first time on the forefront of a technology.
Yeah.
And people see where there's major leverage opportunities to be had, helping us in our daily workflows.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is that like, I mean, even for me, I'm like old, but like not that old. And I'm like, oh man, I got to learn something new. Learning something new sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I have to like go through like all the beginner pains. I feel stupid. It hits my ego, which I have a very big ego. And I think a lot of people fall into that category. And so my thesis on this is like, why aren't we actually like using new grads to fill this pipeline? Like new grads are AI native. They're cheating in college every day with this tech, right? They're using it to write their breakup letters with their boyfriends and girlfriends. And so like, why not use them and then teach them the requisite skills, which I think actually are starting to merge, right? The recruiting skills, it used to just be like, hey, you guys sit in the corner and like the business sits over here and you guys go recruit. But now it's like all starting to merge to your point earlier of like, we got to understand the business. We got to live with the operators. We have to be business native. And so my mind is like, why not bring in the kids, teach them the recruiting skills, right? But also steep them in the other areas of the business and then leverage all of their learnings on AI to really like have that kind of be the kindling inside of the org.
I like it. I think the only thing I would challenge is like folks that are fresh out of school that haven't had that experience yet of working for like 2 to 3 years somewhere and getting that foundational experience is really important and key. So like, I think what you do is you find those folks that are really smart, highly driven and motivated. And there's a lot of them in the market right now. Let's be honest, like the new grad hiring is at an all-time low, I believe. And so it's identifying those people that have, hopefully had like a couple of years experience and then bringing them into the org and training them as a sourcer, as a recruiter, as a business partner, and calling it a tour of duty. You're going to cut your teeth here. This is where you're going to learn everything about the business. You're going to learn how to pitch it. You're going to learn how different functions work with each other. You're going to learn the operating of the rhythm of the business, right? And once you get this landscape, we will deploy you further into the business as then you can become more strategic elsewhere, right? So I think it's a really good, but it sucks for us because we're going to have to like constantly recruit, train, and move people through. But I think it's a really good place for folks to start.
Yeah, the term that just came to my mind is the forward deployed recruiter,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like Palantir has the forward deployed engineer. And I don't think actually anybody has come up with the forward deployed recruiter yet, but I actually think there's significant alpha to be had there because if you truly are like doing a tour of duty, right? And you're steeped in it, you're going to learn a lot really fast. I mean, there's stuff that I felt at DoorDash. I was like, man, do I want to go be a GM? Because like I have so much context that no one else has because I've been living it for so long.
Yeah. I think that's right.
So talk to me a little bit more about this like onboarding thing, right? One, it's super interesting that you put a recruiter on this challenge, but just like more broadly, tell me a little bit more about like what is the onboarding program at Ambience and how do you guys think about solving that problem?
Yeah, so I think just a little bit of like historical context. We had mostly onboarded when we were like 30 to 40 people. We had onboarded folks either in person out of the office or asynchronously if they were remote. through like a Notion doc and come up to speed on all of the context of the business. And here's what you need to know. Here's what you need, who you need to meet with. Go. And I think we wanted to like take that method and really help get people bought in a lot more into the organization, into the health, into the ops rhythm. And so what we did, I guess the first principles thinking was like, if we're gonna truly get folks to onboard really well, they have to truly understand what their scope is and what their role is. So we actually write an MOC for every single job at the company. And we do this because if you write the MOC really well, that translates into what their OKRs are and how you would think about a 30, 60, 90-day plan. Those outcomes are so important, and getting that key alignment with every leader before we even hire for that role helps us stay even closer to the business goals and what the business's OKRs are and what their objectives are, and helps us align with that. Then we can actually interview way better because we understand exactly what this person will need to do. And we design the interview process to be specific to those outcomes, including a test project, which everybody gets because we believe the best way to see somebody's work is to actually have them do it. And then as they onboard, we've got their 30, 60, 90, we've got their MOC. We bring them into a 2-day immersive onboarding where they get all of the context that they would need from every single functional leader in the company. They understand our ops rhythm. They get certified in how to pitch the company. So they get a two-minute pitch, 20-second pitch, 2-minute pitch, and a 20-minute pitch, so that they can confidently go out and be able to talk, right? When you're at a party, when you're with friends, family, like we want you to understand like how to talk about the company and the positioning. And I think like after that 2-day immersive, if you do it really well, on day 3, they're ready to start making an impact, right? It's overwhelming for them. It's exhausting. It's intensive, but I want people that are ready to like deploy out of the gate and start making an impact when they get here. And I think this has been a really good way for us to help people hit the ground running.
So, okay, there's a lot to unpack here. So on doing the onboarding the way you guys are doing it must take a lot of time from like your leadership team as well, correct?
That's right. If you think about it, it's about once you do all the pre-work and once you have, all your slides updated and all the documentation, it's an hour of somebody's time to be able to come in once a month and be able to share that context. So it's not too bad.
Okay. And that's actually really interesting. So the onboarding cohorts are happening once a month. And then I'm assuming you guys are still probably starting people like off schedule and then bringing them in. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, so that's actually like a little bit more palatable, but I've tried to roll these out in the past. And typically what happens is like, XYZ chief X officer goes, "Oh, I'm too busy," or like, "Why are we doing this?" Like, how did you get that level of buy-in with that group?
I think it started with the founders, actually. The founders realized how important this was. And they said, we will commit to being at every single onboarding, both to set the tone on culture and how we operate, but also to do a social and go to dinner with them on the first night and meet everybody in the company. And so like they really set the tone for the importance. And I think that really helps. And then additionally, it's just like, look, everybody in that room that's going to onboarding is hiring for one of these people and for one of these teams. And they also understand like the relative importance to it. And so we start every single session with like, here's what you're going to get out of this, or here's what you should get out of this session. And then at the end, we quiz them and say like, hey, did you get what you thought you were going to get out of this based on what we said, or where are the gaps? So there's this constant like retro happening where we're getting like real-time feedback to continue to improve the quality of the product.
Yeah, it's never a finished state, is it?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So tell me more about this like pitch certification. Like how specifically does this module work?
What we do is we, first of all, one of the founders will come in and kind of tell the story, and then share with people like how they would pitch the company in real time to like take feedback and get questions. We also send them some videos of recordings of people who have done pitches previously to just socialize and get them ready. And then we'll give them some documentation about like what are the key talking points and like how do you mitigate risk and how do you talk about all of the things that we specifically want to land. And then they do a capstone project, and so they'll get into groups, meet with a different leader, and basically go through the pitch. We'll record it. We'll give them feedback in that process. And I think the goal is to ensure that they walk out of there with like a really solid understanding of like our differentiation, our products, our founding story, and then how to speak about culture. And it's been really powerful for folks. I think like some folks get intimidated,
Yeah.
especially like folks that are more early career, like the salespeople are like, bring it on, right? But some other folks can generally be it can be uncomfortable. But I think they understand like the value of it and how important it is, and then they feel that much more confident in their role because they know how to talk about what they're doing and they can connect all the dots.
Do they have to pitch it in front of each other?
They do not. They will meet one-on-one with like a sales engineer or somebody who's doing demos very constantly. And so it's like a one-on-one. It's like less threatening, right?
Yeah, I feel like there needs to be like the next version of this is like go practice and then come back and pitch. I did this public speaking course one time, and the way it opens is you have to like literally pitch something for if you could pitch anything for 60 seconds, and they're recording you the whole time, and you're doing it in front of like 7 other people. And it is super intimidating, but at the same time, you get this like level of trust and relationship with people because everybody looks stupid doing it the first time. That like, if you can get new hires over that, it's like, hey, you're at a new company and oh, by the way, we're going to throw you right into the fire and see how you do this live. I think you walk out of there with some pretty good depth and relationship.
100%. Yeah. You got to be uncomfortable to be comfortable.
Totally. Okay. So you had mentioned the MOC, which stands for Mission Outcome Competencies. The reason I know this is because the guy who published the paper on it at Andreessen Horowitz, Jeff Stump, met me when I was at Carta, and we were like hiring for a chief product officer at the time. And he goes, well, do you have the MOC written? And I go, what's that? And he like busts out his blog post and shares it with me. And I was like, oh shit, like this is a level of detail that I have never gotten to in my life. So can you describe it a little bit in more detail and why you guys do that?
Yeah. I mean, I think like the main takeaways are probably like, let's have extreme clarity on what this person is going to do. So if you write an MOC and this were to land on the desk of any executive at the company or any employee for that matter, in 2 minutes, can somebody read through this and have a crystal clear understanding of why this role exists? What is this person going to do? And what are the traits and behaviors and skills that this person needs to have to be successful? So I think that's really key. And so when you talk about the mission, it's really like, what is the business objective that this person is going to accomplish? You actually have to rewrite it several times because it's not super clear in like 5 sentences. We're doing something wrong, right? So we have to tie that back to like the business goals, the business objectives, what this person will accomplish and why it's impactful. And then you start going into the objectives and you can think about those like this person's KRs. What are they actually going to deliver, right? Is it measurable? How do we quantify this, right? How should we think about the relative impact of this work as it ladders up to the functions goals and then to the broader business goals, right? Super key. And then the competencies. This is the hardest one for me because I think you need to think about what is the archetype of the person that you're trying to hire and determining like what are the behaviors and the skills and the experiences that this person is going to have to be able to go and accomplish those KRs, right? And a lot of times it'll like a lot of the operating rhythms and the cultural competencies that we assess for ring true here, right? So full stack operators, looking for people that are like high slope, people that are like barrels, exceptionally talented, taking ideas from concept to reality, leading projects, right? Versus like ammunition, which like execute really well, but like need more direction. So we think about this like the Keith Rabois framework, which is like barrel or ammunition. So that's big. Yeah. And I think, that's been really key is identifying those competencies and then interviewing against those competencies to ensure that we're getting high fidelity signal in the interview process and ensuring that we can tie that back to what this person will accomplish when we start to onboard them.
Yeah, it becomes a scorecard, right?
Exactly.
So the thing I learned also by doing MOCs is that when you take the time up front and then you send it around to all of like the potential people who are going to be either involved in the interview process or working with this person, you can actually eliminate so much of the downstream effect,
100%.
which ends up being negative, right? So it's like, here's the MOC for the recruiter on my team. You share that out with your CEO, with your manager, with the business partner that they're going to be working with every single day.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they're like, no, Evan, like you completely blew it on this topic.
Mm-hmm.
And now we can like butt heads on it before there's like a person who we've already anchored to the thing.
That's right.
And now like we've ruined their life, right? We had them start a new role,
Yep.
right? And now you're like in defending them mode. And so you get a lot of that shit out of the way early.
Yeah.
And if there are disagreements, like the better time to have it is at the early stage of the process versus when a human's in the building.
Totally. I love that. I mean, I think it's getting everybody into the room, ensuring that everybody is crystal clear on this. And so you socialize it as a pre-read, ensure everybody that's going to be on the interview panel has read it, understands it. And if they have questions that they can comment in the doc beforehand and we can get those resolved. And then we go into the room and ensure everybody knows like, what is the archetype? What are the screening questions? What are the achievements? What are green flags, red flags? Everybody should have like extreme clarity on the questions that they're going to ask and the rubric that they're going to interview against. So everybody walks out of there and it's like go time, right? And in the debrief, now we're having a much more thoughtful debrief. And this is where I see a lot of companies like make mistakes is they'll go into the debrief and it'll just be like, I didn't really like this person, like it's just like, no. Like, what was your competency? What did you interview for? And what signal did you get? And like, once you give that feedback, you're excused, right? Like, that's what we need you for. And like, that's your only job, right? This is not consensus. There's a DRI. The DRI makes the decision, but the DRI should also gather everybody's input and ensure that everybody is getting what that person needs.
Yeah, and then I'm assuming also that the MOC can then be used as kind of like a check-in once the person is hired. So how do you guys think about measuring, everyone uses the term quality of hire, but like, how do you guys think about like the second order of humans in the building? Now they're here. Do you guys care about that?
Yeah, we do. So Ashby actually has a cool feature that we've implemented some automated quality of hire assessments. So at the 30-day and the 60-day and the 90-day mark, a quality of hire assessment will go out to the hiring manager. And we'll get, I think it's like 10 questions. It's pretty quick. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes. But basically, how is this person tracking relative to the 30, 60, 90 that you built for them? Have they accomplished their goals? Are there any early signals or flags that you're seeing? Does this person seem like you would, advocate for hiring them again? Are you not sure yet? Would you actually not hire again? And then I'll go and meet with every single new hire at the 45-day mark to do a check-in. And then again at the 90-day mark to ensure that it's a two-way street and that there's feedback on both sides. So what is the manager saying and how does that correlate? And then what are we actually hearing from the new hire? I think new hires will usually determine how long they want to stay at a company within like the first week or two, right? And they'll know like, I'm going to stay here for 3 years or I'm going to stay here for like a year, right? And it's largely based on like how confident they are in the company and the organization's ability to set them up for success. And so part of that is like, hey, how are you doing? Do you feel like you're on track? Do you have clear goals, right? What are you blocked by, right? Any context or cultural observations or things that you're not grokking yet, right? Let's talk through those. And then usually at the 60 to 90-day mark, you have pretty good signal on both sides. Sometimes there's a disconnect with the hiring manager and they have blind spots. And it's like, hey, this is what I'm hearing from your new hire, right? Like, have you done this, and this, right? And getting clarity and giving some coaching. And then other times it's like the hiring manager is like, hey, we're missing, this is a gap, like they're not delivering at all. And then you can do a postmortem and a quick retro to figure out like, what do we actually need to change in the hiring process to like minimize this mistake?
Yeah, which enables a couple things. I think the most importantly is that mishires happen. Like it sucks, right? Like, but if we're being really honest, there's no 100% in recruiting. Like you want a high batting average, but nobody bats 1,000.
Yep.
And so I'm assuming that it also enables the ability to move quickly when you do make a mistake.
Yep.
Because again, we all make mistakes. And so what then gets, what should be measured rather is how fast you move on it. And so I'm assuming that enables like pretty fast speed when we do make a mistake.
Yeah, that's right. So the benefit to all of this, like day 3, they're ready to jump into the business and have impact. They've got their 30, 60, 90. They know what they need to accomplish. And you have this great like communication back and forth with candidate and with hiring manager. You can actually get signal pretty early. And if it's a mishire, have we given the coaching? Have we given the feedback, right? And if we're not seeing what we want to see, like, here's a generous severance package. Let's help you find the right place. This isn't for everybody. We actually do a lot of counter selling to ensure that folks are really bought in and understand like the expectations are high. We work fast, we work hard, like it's not for everybody. And so if we've done that and we've given folks a shot to be able to perform and they can't execute, right? There's only so much you can do in an interview, so much you can do in back channels, references. Like but then it's up to the individual, right? We have to set them up for success, but then it's on them to actually go out and do their role. And so sometimes that doesn't happen, and that's okay. We need to make sure that we handle them with care as we help transition them out of their work.
So, okay, you use the term counter selling. I call it the anti-sell.
Mm-hmm.
When do you weave it into your process, and how do you do it with grace?
First call, first phone call.
Wow.
Talking to candidates. This place is not for everybody. It's a hard place to work. Here's, like by the way, this ties back to so I'm interviewing a lot of recruiters now, and we were doing a test project that was like, can you show me how you would do an intake, show me how you would source, right? All that stuff. It's useless. It's table stakes. Everybody can do those things. It's not rocket science. What's more interesting is when you're working at a company that doesn't have like the brand that OpenAI or Anthropic has. You're going to be pitching on every single call that you talk to candidates for your first 10 minutes. You have to get the candidates buy-in immediately, right? And so what I do now is I actually have people pitch me as a part of the test project. And so I'm the candidate. I ask them to pitch. We give them a ton of information ahead of time and then ask them to go out and research. You'd be surprised at how little people take advantage of people in their network, like reaching out to people at the company, like practicing, trying to like, bend people's ears and understand more about the business. And so they come in and they do kind of the boilerplate pitch. And that's a key component of getting people excited. And so part of it is like, I'm going to pitch you for the first 10 minutes, every candidate, like, let me walk you through the context. Here's the founder's story. Here's the company story. Here's the history. Here's our trajectory. This is the mission. By the way, it's a really hard place to work and it's not for everybody, and that's okay. But we want to own that and we want to be honest with you and help you understand so that you can like opt out from the very beginning and not get too deep into the process because it's not for the faint of heart. And we just want to own that, right?
Totally. And I love that because now that you're saying it the way that you do, what you're not saying is like, I'm only anti-selling you, right? What you're saying is like, I give you the pitch, right? I learn a little bit about you. And then I tell you like, what's really up here. Like, this is how this place actually operates, which, I always say like, people are like different flavors of ice cream, right? And like strawberry might really like Ambience, right? But vanilla might be like, this is a fucking nightmare, right? Like, help me avoid like, and so I think it's important to do it in the first call of just like, this is what this is.
Yep.
But then I'm assuming then what you also do is as we learn more about the candidate, then giving them feedback along the way, you're then able, it's not even like an anti-sell. It's like, hey, we saw this thing. We really like you, but this is the concern that we have as it's going to relate into your day to day. And then just seeing how they respond to those things, because ultimately, like, it's not about, it's like when you going back to like the beginning of this conversation and talking and meeting our wives, like, it's not all good for us, right? Like we all have different angles of our personality. And so I think it's just important to like give people the opportunity to say, this is what we noticed, right? This is why that would not work here.
Yep.
What do you think about that thing?
Yep. That's right. That's right. And I think we'll even go as far as like sending the cultural clarification PDF to people as they're in an interview process so that they can understand like who this is the right environment for and who this is not the right environment for. And then you got to do the counter sell or the anti-sell when you're closing as well. So it's like first phone call, middle of process, pre-interview, and then, very end. The worst thing that could happen is people get here and they go, wow, this was not what I was expecting. I'm wrong, right? And that has happened. And so we've doubled down on this to ensure that we're getting people that are ready for wartime.
Wait, did you say, what was the culture thing called?
Culture clarification.
What is that?
It's just a PDF that basically just clarifies like how we operate, how we think, the people that tend to do well here, extreme bias for action, right? We talked about like full stack operators, people that have like very high integrity, mission driven, low ego. When decision making happens, it's like we want people that are going to prioritize what's best for the company and the mission above their own self-interest. And so we just want to be really clear about like the people that tend to do really well here and just say like, this is what we've noticed. Right. You may not be that person. That's okay. But we want you to opt in, right? We want you to know what you're getting into, right? To minimize, right? Because this is a decision for both sides, right? You're making a decision. We want you to have extreme clarity as you're coming into the organization.
How did you come up with that? Like, so what was the process of coming up with the culture clarification document?
Probably some of the stuff from Brian Armstrong at Coinbase, honestly, and just making sure that we were really clear with folks coming into the org, like what kind of business we were going to be and what kind of business we were not going to be. And so I think there's some of it there. I think there's also just like this, I think businesses now are starting to think about like more about the bottom line and about like, how do we execute and how do we grow? And I think a lot of that ties back to ensuring that you just get the very best people into the organization. So
Yeah. And the most aligned people, right, into the organization like that. Because here, I think I always say headcount is a vanity metric, right? But in the 2010s era, like the way that we described the company, part of the way we described the company was how many employees we had. And that was like one of the first things that we said. But if you have a bunch of employees that are misaligned,
Yep.
then you're actually going to move significantly slower, as we learned from like the layoff era, when every founder was like, holy shit, we're moving so much faster. Oh my God, like I have, less of these like concerns to deal with that are orthogonal to the problem that we're trying to solve. And
Yeah.
really the thing underneath the thing there is exactly what Coinbase learned,
Yeah.
which is like when they published the mission-oriented doc, it's like, you're either in or you're out. And we want you here, but this is what it is. And if you're not aligned with this, you should go because it's bad for you and it's really bad for us.
Yeah. So how do you think about talent density? Like how do you define talent density and like how do you think about its relative importance?
Well, okay. So okay. Relative importance, I think, is the key term there, because when people say talent density, I think they're basically just trying to steal what Coinbase did and just say like, we want, A players in every role. And I actually, so at my company, if I were to go build another company, I want that. I have a very close friend who they don't believe in that. Like they are very, very clear that we actually don't want A players in every role, because some of these roles, if you put an A player in there, they'd hit their ceiling so fast
Yeah.
and then basically go promotion chase that there isn't another role for them to have for like years, because it's a slower growing business, more infrastructure play. And so I think the relative comment on talent density is super important. That's why I was really curious about how you were thinking about this culture clarification, because culture clarification, I think, is the pre-work for talent density at your company. Because talent density at Ambience is likely different than Coinbase, which is likely different than like, AT&T,
Yeah.
because we're doing different things. We have different problems to solve. We're growing at a different pace.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think it has to come down to specifically like, what are the problems we're trying to solve? What are the behaviors of our top performers? And can we actually enumerate those behaviors and then go list, line by line when we're evaluating people, not only in the recruiting process, but then also in performance reviews, which everyone seems to forget.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. It all ties into performance reviews for sure.
So tell me about the performance review process. Like, what do you guys do there? And are you involved in this? Because like actually, let's start there. Are you involved in the performance review process?
Yeah. But we are hiring a VP of people, and that person will likely take this over. And I'll happily give that to them. But yeah, I think like we do a performance review. Right now we've done an annual review. And it's been really helpful to, again, like double down on all of those things that we learn in onboarding and hiring and then 30, 60, 90. And, if we do all of that really well upstream, performance reviews, become like an exercise in just ensuring that we're giving feedback, that we're recognizing and rewarding of performance, and that we're just having those like 360 conversations, right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of what you're talking about right now is like this like a lot of what used to be just like HR work. Like onboarding was owned by HR. Like, yeah, you guys are hiring a VP of people, but like I'm assuming you're still going to be intimately involved with performance reviews as we go forward, because like now, as my friend Amina had told me, right, it's like at Vercel, like they have their head of business recruiting, head of tech recruiting sitting in on each respective organization's calibration session. That makes intrinsic sense to me. It kind of feels like these like HR and recruiting worlds are like merging. Do you think that?
I do. Look, I think if you're going to pay somebody like $250,000, $300,000 a year in total comp, it's not far-fetched to ask them to do more and to operate across various aspects of the employee lifecycle. And so when you think about that lifecycle, it all ties together, right? Like how you scope the role goes back to the business needs, what that person does in role, how they get onboarded, how they get coaching and feedback along the way, how we're conducting manager enablement to ensure that like we have a toolkit for managers to know how to like manage performance and give good feedback and give coaching and development. And then that all ties into performance management and rewards and like incentivizing our very best employees to continue to have impact and go do more. And where folks are struggling, right? Like ensuring that we've given them every opportunity to succeed. And when they're not, making the hard calls to move on and backfill those people to drive greater output. So I think it all ties together. And so how that looks for the recruiter and the HR business partner, there's probably like a blending of these worlds where if you can find folks that can do both, and organizations are asking us to do more with less resources. I mean, you've got companies now that are 100 people that are over $1 billion valuation, right? You're going to probably have a pretty lean people and talent department in those instances. So you kind of have to do more, right? And I think that's good if you've got people that are up for the task and that are capable of leaning into those things and want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, my experience, so when I was at DoorDash, right, like I came up in recruiting, right? So I was like tried and true recruiter. And then what ended up happening was business operators were like, Nolan, like I'm having these problems with my org. And I was like, oh, like I would love to like just help you think through this. And the more I started doing that, I mean, I helped hire all those people. So like I knew all of like the people that they were talking about. Right. And then I knew the business because of all the WeDash stuff and like hanging out with those people. It seems to me that actually, if those worlds are merging, actually having the recruiting background is potentially more important.
Yep.
Because like recruiting is a skill that takes years to hone.
Mm-hmm.
And on the business partner side, I don't know if you need as many reps on that side. What do you think about that take?
Yeah. I mean, which role is more strategic and which is more like tactical? I think both are equally as important. And I think it all ties to that life cycle. But going back to our earlier conversation about hiring those people like new grads fresh out of school that are super high slope and have an extreme desire to learn and gather as much context as they can in the business, these people do really well in roles where they can be a business partner, like start as a recruiter, move into a business partner.
Totally.
And be able to like take over things like manager enablement, even performance reviews, onboarding, right? All of the benefits, compensation, right? There's so much to learn. Why don't we open the door for folks that are really hungry and want to do this stuff, and give them an opportunity to do so?
Yeah, I remember at Google, we had like these 9, like for new grads coming into people operations, they had like 9-month stints in each of the different people ops departments. And I thought that was actually like so wise, right? Because it's just like, one, what do you like? Because like these things are a little bit different. But two, you can just see how everything works. So that way you have at least the context of like when you're doing your job in recruiting, like what's actually going to be happening in performance reviews, why we do what we do, how those people think. And it just helps like weave those worlds together in a much more coherent way.
Yep, that's right.
So Evan, where can people find you? This is a blast.
I'm in Carlsbad, California. I see the Niners helmets there. I've got my Niners helmet. I'm taking my son to the Rams game in LA on.
Oh my God, it's on Thursday.
Yeah, so we're excited for that. I've never been to SoFi, so we're excited to see the Niners play. But yeah.
Thanks for the invite, bro.
Tickets are not cheap. You'd be surprised. Actually, one of the soccer dads that I'm in the soccer team with, basically told me to buy the ticket on the home side because he said the visitors because the stadium flips from Chargers to Rams. So I bought tickets on the home side and then did some more research, and people were texting me like, dude, you're on the wrong side. So now I got to sell my tickets.
Are you serious?
Sell my tickets on the Rams side and go get Niners tickets. But hopefully those will get cleared today.
That's sick. Go Niners.
Yeah, that's right.